Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT08, and BT08 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to upgrade and iterate on some current and existing decks. And one of the decks that gets actually a huge boost, despite the fact that it did get a nerf in some way, is going to be the Jesmon deck. So the Jesmon deck is still going to be a very powerful deck just because the introduction to Kimeramon and how Jagras/DNA Digivolution wants to work makes Jesmon a very desirable deck to be playing around with, just because we actually have very easy ways to be able to utilize that mechanic on top of whatever Jesmon was already doing. Even though, yes, SaviorHuckmon getting limited to 1 does severely hurt the deck, it's still going to be a relatively playable deck with some support later on. So, without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running one copy of DemiMeramon. So, DemiMeramon is that 5th Digitama of the deck. It could really be anything you want it to be if you even want to run it, but I do think that DemiMeramon is just one of the better red Digitamas that we have, because he has one of the most generic ways at DP boosting our Digimon to ensure they're going to be as powerful as they possibly can. So his inheritable ability states that when this Digimon attacks a player, then this Digimon will gain plus 1000 DP for the turn, so it's just helping our mid to low level Digimon be a little bit more aggressive, just because it doesn't necessarily matter as much the higher stages we go on how much DP they have. But as far as the main Digitama of the deck, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gurimon. So Red finally has a really strong generic Digitama that we could use to try to help draw extra cards, and Gurimon's ability to do that is super easy to trigger. So his inheritable ability states that when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has 6000 DP or more, then we get to draw 1 card, and there's just a lot of different cards that we could run that have over 6000 DP to be able to draw cards really consistently and as early as a level 4 to be very aggressive with. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Huckmon. So this is the BT06 version of Huckmon, and this card is going to be one of the key engine cards of the deck. So his on-play ability states that we get to reveal the top 5 cards of our deck and add up to 2 cards with Huckmon, Jesmon, or Sistermon in their names from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So the fact that he's going to be looking for any of those parts and pieces, and we get to take 2 of them, makes him one of the best diggers that we have. And speaking of digging, next I'm going to be running 4 copies of Huckmon. So this is the BT07 version of Huckmon, and this Huckmon is pretty good at only digging out our Sistermons, but we still want to see our Sistermons and use our Sistermons in some very powerful ways, so having a card to help dig them out is still really valuable, on top of the fact that he has a little bit of some stronger stats compared to some other level 3s that we could be running. So his inheritable ability states that when we attack once per turn, we get to reveal the top 5 cards of our deck and add all cards with Sistermon in their name from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So the more Sistermons we see off of this ability, the better this ability is at being able to utilize our Sistermons. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Biyomon. So this is the Classic Collection version of Biyomon, and this is kind of a flex spot in the deck. So its inheritable ability states that when we attack once per turn, when this Digimon attacks a player, then we get to draw 1 card, making it one of the more easy cards to use to help us draw cards and to cycle through our deck as quickly as we possibly can to find our parts and pieces to combo off with. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Sistermon Blanc. So Sistermon Blanc is still one of the most important cards in the deck, just because this is going to be acting as the defensive backbone. So she has this nice powerful all turns ability, where while we have a Digimon with Huckmon in its name or Royal Knight in its type in play, then all of our Digimon with Sistermon gain the blocker ability, so we're not really running any true blockers. This is just going to be acting as the blocker to try to help stave off some of the opponent's offense, and the more Sistermons that we have on the field, the more powerful this ability becomes, just because, well, they'll all have blockers. Then on top of that, she has a really good on-play ability to combo with our Jesmon, where her on-play ability states that we just get to draw a card, so it's not even a downside to just hard play the card to be able to just help cycle through our deck. And then the last level 3 of the deck is going to be 1 copy of Sistermon Blanc Awakened. So Sistermon Blanc Awakened is a pretty cool card to use just because, well, she's adding some extra consistency to the deck and adding another keyword that Jesmon could really take advantage of. So she has the uniqueness where she could Digivolve for 2 off of a level 3 white Digimon, which is primarily going to be our other Sistermon Blanc. So that way we could even utilize our Sistermon Blancs to try to gain some extra card draw post playing them when we can't utilize her on-play ability. But her on-play ability is something very, very powerful, where we get to place 1 Sistermon Blanc from our hand or trash to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source to recover 1. So there is no security restriction on being able to recover, and having access to that recovery ability just allows our deck to try to stay in the game a little bit longer when the opponent is going to be attacking us. Then, on top of all of that, she also has a really good on-deletion ability, where we get to put a card with Jesmon, Huckmon, or Sistermon, not Sistermon Blanc Awakened, from our trash back into our hand, so that way we could even start thinking about reusing the cards in our trash to have some extra consistency that way. Next, on to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of BaoHuckmon. So yes, we're mostly playing BaoHuckmon just because he is part of the Huckmon line, and he also has some really good synergy with how the deck wants to play because of all of the usage of our Sistermons. So not only is it a really good level 4 to start thinking about aggressing with it just because he is a level 4 with 6000 DP, just so we could try to get some early game card draw, but he also has a really good inheritable ability that we want to take advantage of on our higher stages, where when we attack once per turn, if we have a Digimon with Sistermon in its name in play, then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 5000 DP or less to try to pick apart their board of their mid to low level Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gurimon. So Gurimon is going to be the primary inheritable ability that we want to use with our Jesmon, just so our Jesmon can have some extra punch onto the opponent's security. So what's allowing him to do that is his inheritable ability of just giving whatever Digimon that's on top of him the security attack +1 ability, so that way we could use it also in combination with our level 5s to even be more aggressive with, to try to use them to punch extra hard as well. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Geogreymon. So Geogreymon is kind of a flex spot for the deck. It doesn't necessarily have to be Geogreymon if you don't want to run Geogreymon. I just think Geogreymon is a really good card just because we don't have a whole lot of security threats, and he's actually acting as a really solid security threat while trying to help control the opponent's field all at the same time, while being a really solid level 4 Digimon to use in combination with some DNA Digivolution effects. So what this card is doing is he is a security Digimon, so at the end of the security battle, we get to play him for free, so that way we could try to trigger his on-play ability to be able to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less. At worst, if we do just want to hard play him just for his on-play ability, then that's pretty okay as well, just because, well, it's still trying to help control and mitigate some of the opponent's field and some of their actions. Then, on top of that, like I stated before, he could be used in combination with some DNA Digivolution abilities because they might not be anticipating him coming out of the security to help set up some of those lines of play. And then the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Sistermon Ciel. So Sistermon Ciel is still just a really good card just because of all of her synergy and interactions with our Huckmon and Royal Knights, on top of the fact that she is another level 4 that has a really good on-play ability that we want to try to take advantage of for DNA Digivolution. So what Ciel is doing more specifically is during all turns, all of our Digimon with Huckmon in their name or Royal Knights in their traits get plus 2000 DP, so she just makes our Huckmon, Jesmon, and other Royal Knights we could be using a little bit more powerful and a little bit more annoying for the opponent to try to deal with. Then, on top of that, she has the on-play ability where we get to gain 1 memory, so she's realistically costing 3 if we're choosing to hard play, in case we want to try to line up a DNA Digivolution ability, or off of our Jesmon that's going to be able to play her for free, then she's going to be netting us 1 memory, and that could be really important to make some very powerful follow-up plays with. Next, on to the level 5s, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Volcdramon. So Volcdramon is basically going to be the level 5 version of Greymon, where we're really just trying to use this card just because its inheritable ability is another very easy way to gain security attack plus to try to have whatever Digimon that's going to be on top of them deal even more damage than they normally would. And we could use this in combination with our Kimeramon, which is going to be the primary DNA Digivolution effect we want to try to take advantage of to be able to make a very powerful Kimeramon. On top of the fact that we want to use this card also in combination with Jesmon to make our Jesmon even stronger and hit even harder than the opponent might be anticipating. Even though it's not going to be as hard without SaviorHuckmon, it's still going to be hard enough to deal some decent damage, on top of the fact that we do want to be a little bit more aggressive in the earlier stages of the game to try to get some extra card draw in. Next, I'm going to be running one copy of SaviorHuckmon. So unfortunately, SaviorHuckmon is limited to one just because it's a really good card to use in combination with Kimeramon to line up some very easy and powerful DNA Digivolution abilities. So what Huckmon is doing is he has a nice when Digivolving ability where we get to play one Digimon with Sistermon in its name from our hand for free. So free value is just good value, especially since all of the Sistermons have really good on-play abilities we want to try to take advantage of. Then on top of that, this also has an absolutely insane inheritable ability where when attacking once per turn, if we have a Digimon with Sistermon in its name in play, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon, allowing whatever's going to be on top of him to multi-swing as long as we have a Sistermon on the field. And obviously the easiest choice to pair him up with is going to be our Jesmon, because our Jesmon has the ability to play our Sistermons, but we could use this in combination with Kimeramon, just because we have some very easy ways to get into a Kimeramon, and then Kimeramon could actually use this inheritable ability based on how Kimeramon wants to play. And then the last level 5 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Kimeramon. So Kimeramon is an absolutely insane card for how this deck wants to work, just because we could try to take advantage of some of our other cards in some new and exciting ways thanks to his DNA Digivolving and when Digivolving abilities. So what this card is doing is, even though yes, he is a white level 5 Digimon, he could Digivolve off of any level 4 for only 4. But we're not really trying to use that because we're trying to line up his DNA Digivolution ability where we could use 2 level 4 stacks on our field to combine them and to basically Digivolve them into Kimeramon for 0. And the crazy thing about DNA Digivolution is the fact that this counts as a brand new Digimon that can also swing on top of getting rid of any buffs or debuffs that were currently applied to our Digimon. So this is really, really powerful because it could be used in combination to make some of our level 4s more aggressive, use them to try to swing a little bit more risky, and then if they live, then we could try to DNA Digivolution them into a brand new Kimeramon stack to unsuspend them and get an extra swing that way on top of all of Kimeramon's other abilities. So Kimeramon has a slew of really powerful abilities on top of already being a really strong level 5 stat-wise, where he has this when Digivolving ability, where we get to place one level 5 or lower Digimon from our trash to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution stack. So that's kind of how we could actually use SaviorHuckmon in combination with Kimeramon, is to just be able to put whatever level 5 or lower underneath him and gain their abilities. And then the second part of this first ability states that then up to 4 of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP for each color this Digimon has until the end of the opponent's turn. So he is a white Digimon, but his secondary ability helps feed into his first ability, where during your turn, this Digimon is also treated as the same color Digimon in his Digivolution source. So that's kind of how we could try to take advantage of the fact that he's white, and then use red in combination to at least be able to reduce the opponent's Digimon's DP by 2000. Then if we're playing with any other color combinations inside of the deck, then the ability only gets stronger, and same with the secondary ability, where while this Digimon has 4 or more colors, then it gains plus 4000 DP. This will almost never trigger, but you could actually build the deck to incorporate 4 or more colors to be able to use Kimeramon a little bit better, and have Jesmon be the facilitator to try to use Kimeramon even easier, thanks to the ability to be able to play our Sistermons for free to help set this up. And then as far as the only level 6 of the deck, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Jesmon. So Jesmon is going to be realistically the only level 6 that we need because he's just that good of a level 6 Digimon. So he has this nice when attacking ability where we get to play a Digimon with Sistermon from our hand or trash for free, so that way we could try to accrue all of that Sistermon value and again try to line up extra Kimeramon plays to be extra aggressive with him. Then on top of that, he has this nice secondary ability that feeds into his first, where during your turn once per turn, when we play another Digimon, this Digimon gets plus 3000 DP and the piercing ability, making him a minimum of 14k with piercing. That's going to be swinging at the opponent, and that's just going to be a very hard Digimon to stop, especially paired up with all of the instances of security attack plus we could give him, and the multi-attack potential that SaviorHuckmon still has with the deck, even though it's going to be a little bit less consistent. And then as far as the level 7s go, I'm only going to be running 1 copy of Omnimon. This BT05 version of Omnimon is still good, mainly just acting as a game finisher. So we're just trying to take advantage of the fact that we can hit the opponent's security relatively hard, then use this Omnimon to Digivolve on top of our Jesmon for his 2 when Digivolving abilities to unsuspend the Digimon, and Blitz to swing with that unsuspended Digimon, so that way we could try to close out the game that way. Then if we are unable to close out the game and we just want to have a really solid Digimon for lots of consistent pressure, then his All Turns ability has some defensive backbone to the card, making him a little bit extra resilient compared to a lot of other cards in the game, where if this Digimon would be deleted or returned to the hand or deck by an opponent's card effect, then we could trash a level 6 Digimon from his Digivolution source to prevent this Digimon from leaving the field. So he's just a really good card to be using overall, mostly as that game finisher though. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of A Delicate Plan. So A Delicate Plan is still a pretty decent card just because we want to try to make our big, powerful push turn as safe and easy as we could possibly make it, and A Delicate Plan helps ease some of our worries just because its main ability states that one of our Digimon gains the ability where this Digimon doesn't activate the security effects of option cards that are checked in their security for the turn. So if the whole idea is to try to punch the opponent's security as hard as we possibly can, we're going to be going through lots of different checks, and we could check problematic option cards, and this card is here to help shut those lines of plays off. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Judgement of the Blade. So Judgement of the Blade is going to be, for all intents and purposes, the main way we're going to actually try to remove the opponent's Digimon off their field. So what this card is doing is it has the main ability that allows our Huckmon or Royal Knight to be able to attack the opponent's unsuspended Digimon. So with Jesmon easily going to be able to swing for 14 with Piercing, it makes it so we could easily delete the opponent's Digimon while dealing them damage at the same time, and stacked up with some instances of Security Attack Plus, could deal some extra damage onto the opponent. And then on top of that, its security ability is another pretty solid effect where we get to play one of our Digimon with Sistermon in its name from our hand or trash without paying its memory cost, and then we get to add this card into our hand for even more potential power plays, while also spawning a Sistermon to potentially do lots of different things with depending on what the current state of the game is looking like. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Red Memory Boost. So even though we are running some white Digimon in the deck and it's not always going to hit red Digimon, it's still a pretty good card to use to help with the overall consistency of the deck because we get to check the top 4 and add 1 red Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So it still has a pretty high chance of success, and on top of that, we also want to try to take advantage of the delay ability that it's going to have, where instead of going to the trash, this card's going to go to the battle area, and we get to use it at a later turn to gain 2 instant memory with to make a very powerful follow-up play. And its security ability just puts itself onto the field, so that way we could trigger the delay ability whenever we really feel like we need to. And then the last card of the deck is going to be the only tamer of the deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of Tai Kamiya. So Tai Kamiya is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing tamer, so that way we could try to make our plays as efficient as we possibly can, just because he'll prevent us from getting memory choked and always hard setting our memory to 3 if it's ever less than 3. Then on top of that, he also has a pretty decent ability that we could use in various different ways, where during your turn, all of our red Digimon with 4 or more Digivolution sources gain security attack +1. So obviously the big intended purpose is to use this in combination with Jesmon, so he has another instance of security attack plus that we could add to him, but we could actually think about utilizing this with something like Kimeramon, just because we could have 2 separate stacks to fuse into a nice Kimeramon to be able to have enough inheritable sources to be able to actually trigger Tri's ability, because Kimeramon most likely will also be counting as a red Digimon. So it just goes to show that a card like this actually does have some decent flexibility based on the different types of cards that we're going to be using. And then we still have a whole bunch of room for customization in the deck, depending on the types of synergies you want to try to take advantage of and the cards you want to be playing. So if you want, you could think about using Gaussmon as just another anti-meta floodgate type card to try to limit the opponent's actions from reducing their own Digivolution costs. Then on top of that, we do have the brand new Gamamon. That's also a really good card at allowing us to try to play our Tamers to gain some extra benefits while having a nice inheritable to try to delete some of the opponent's low-level Digimon. Then we do have a couple of different ways to try to DP boost on our rookie stage to make our mid to high level Digimon even stronger. So Agumon from the starter deck, either the Gallantmon starter deck or the Gaia Force starter deck, are both really good cards to think about utilizing to just easily gain some extra DP. Then we also could think about leaning into some Gallantmon synergy, just because Gallantmon is a Royal Knight, and this Guilmon also could help us draw cards when we're deleting the opponent's Digimon, while being able to warp into a Gallantmon as well. Then if we do want to try to double down on DNA Digivolution, we do have Fugamon as a really good card to use just because the low play cost and low evo cost make him very tempo efficient as a whole to line up Jogress plays. On top of the fact that we also have hybrids that we could think about utilizing, so if we do play a little bit heavier into the tamer side of things, thanks to some of the cards that we could be playing, then a Gurimon is another really good card to just act as a solid way to just easily Jogress into our higher stages, on top of the fact that we could use a Gurimon as a game finisher for when the opponent's security is all broken, we could just Digivolve on top of one of our tamer and swing for the game. Then, just as another really solid generic inheritable ability we could try to take advantage of if you want to go more into a control aspect style of the deck, then we have the starter deck Growlmon to think about using, just because the starter deck Growlmon can help gain some extra memory when we're deleting the opponent's Digimon to make some of our cards more efficient. And if we do want to try to take advantage of Kimeramon, then we could also run some very aggressive 2-color Digimon in the form of some armored Digimon. So Volcdramon is going to be one of the more aggressive level 4 Digimon that we could run, just because the armor release ability helps him have some extra protection. The fact that he's 2 colors adds to the color count of Kimeramon, and he's aggressive as a whole, allowing us to be able to use Gurimon's ability as easy as a level 4. Then if you wanted to add some extra removal and play another Awakened Sistermon, then we also have Sistermon Ciel Awakened to think about playing, mostly just for the on-delete ability to help bring cards back into our hands that we want. Then, like I stated before, if you want to try to lean into different colors and try to take advantage of DNA Digivolution, we also have Mimicmon as one of the easiest level 4 Digimon to hard play, just because we're not looking to Digivolve up into him, and his ability can help us gain some memory when we hard play him to make him even more efficient than some of the other level 4s. And if you do want to take that red-yellow direction, then we do have some cards to help support that in the form of Rise Greymon. Rise Greymon also helps play our tamers a little bit more efficiently and has a really nice inheritable to line up with some of our other cards to try to help DP reduce the opponent's Digimon even further. We also have a new version of Sylphimon to try to help that red-yellow sub-theme if you want to go into that direction, while also being another very powerful point of DNA Digivolution and having another really solid inheritable ability that Jesmon can try to use. And as far as trying to play our tamers even easier, we also have something like Metal Greymon from BT07 to use his on-play ability to help play our tamer or gain some extra memory to make him an efficient level 5 to hard play. And on top of that, he has a good inheritable ability that's acting very similar to the Growlmon's ability that we saw from the Gallantmon starter deck. But if you want to try to be a little bit more aggressive with your level 5s, then we could run something like the starter deck War Growlmon, just because he's a very powerful level 5 to just start swinging with right away to gain some additional value, just because he could help pop the opponent's low-level Digimon while triggering some of our various on-attack abilities, while also helping our Jesmon still be able to try to gain Security Attack Plus to be able to punch the opponent's security relatively hard. Then, if we do want to try to play some other level 6s, we have access to some really powerful level 6s. We do have access to one of the 4 Sovereigns to try to help make this card cheap to Digivolve into if the opponent has a wide field of low-level Digimon. This card will help clean them up, and then for this card help cleaning them up, he'll make himself cheaper to Digivolve into, and he'll even boost himself with some extra Security Attack Plus per Digimon that's being deleted, so that way we could try to use this card to punch the opponent's security relatively hard with. And then, as I said before, if you do want to go into some more of that Gallantmon synergy, then we even have some various forms of Gallantmon to try to help deal some extra damage and control the opponent's field all at the same time, if in case you can't find your Jesmon. Then we have a slew of different options that we could try to think about utilizing, so one of the better new option cards that we could try to play is going to be Crimson Blaze, mostly to try to shut off the opponent's ability to play their Digimon by card effects, so it really starts to limit some of their actions while trying to delete their Digimon at the same time. And then we do have some other various forms of removal and other really solid option cards that we could run in the deck. I'm going to be highlighting Atomic Blaster just because it's one of the best removal options we have, next to Gaia Force for various different purposes. Then, if you can't afford Tai Kamiya, we actually do have another really solid generic red memory fixing tamer to use in the form of Hero. So Hero mostly is going to be used to fix our memory, but we could actually utilize the fact that we could use him to help try to DP boost our high level Digimon. And then speaking of utilizing our high-level Digimon very aggressively, we also could think about trying to splash in Analog Youth to try to make some very powerful plays with it, not only just to help with the deck's overall consistency, but because we are going to be relying a little bit more on our level 5s and our level 6s to be able to do some work, mainly Kimeramon, just because Kimeramon has the ability to shove sources underneath him, which puts him in easy use of Analog Youth's secondary ability to try to turbo our raising area with. Now, my favorite combo to show off the sheer power that Jesmon can still have is going to be in the Dream scenario, utilizing him and Kimeramon in some very powerful ways. So obviously the Dream stack is going to be Jesmon as the level 6, followed by SaviorHuckmon as the level 5 to get those multiple attacks with, to be able to play 2 Sistermons to be able to Jogress into Kimeramon with, followed by the Gurimon from the starter deck to just to actually have some extra damage. So just that stack alone allows our Jesmon to swing twice with Security Attack Plus, so that way we could deal 4 damage onto the opponent super easily, and then just because Jesmon can multi-attack thanks to SaviorHuckmon, we could play 2 Sistermon Ciels to be able to gain some additional memory with, and on top of the fact that we are playing 2 level 4s, we could then use them to be able to Digivolve them into Kimeramon and be able to swing with the Kimeramon right away. So that's already going to be 5 security super easily, and then we could end the turn by being able to Digivolve into Blitz Omni for the game. And that's kind of just the Dream scenario, but it's still a very possible scenario that we could try to line up. Now, at worst, we could try to line up a play where we're trying to shove SaviorHuckmon underneath our Kimeramon, and just the fact that our Kimeramon could shove level 5s underneath, just add extra usability to our SaviorHuckmon, on top of the fact that if he's in the trash, then that's kind of what the Awakened cards are for, is to also be able to utilize him in a more meaningful way. So just because he is going to be limited, the deck still isn't dead, and it's a very fun and strong deck that could really take the opponent by surprise depending on how you build it. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.